Doug Willen. My temperature today is 97.8. I always take my temperature on this little daily blog so you could see where I'm sitting at. I run traditionally low, and I'm an advocate of taking your temperature, at least at this time, frequently enough to know what your true average is. I just had a patient contact me through Instagram yesterday, and she said that she went to the hospital. She knows that her temperature runs about 1.5 degrees lower than average. Uh, this was so she said that I want to get tested. She got turned away because she doesn't have any other symptoms except fever. But she knows she's running a fever, but when they took her temperature, it was 98.6, and she averages below that. And she even had that documented in a spreadsheet, but she got turned away. So I don't think that happens a lot, but it happens, and at least we should know where our temperature is. This is kind of interesting. Let's look at this really quick. I found this on Instagram, and the visual artist, you can see his handle. It's at XTOTL, very talented. So what this is showing is without social distancing, the disease just spreads. But if we're able to not work from home, work from home, skip the barbecue, didn't fly with a lot of people or do transportation, and you stayed at home, then look how many fewer cases than this. It's a great visual, isn't it? You get the idea. So what's happening sometimes here in this country is not all places are practicing social distancing. We're definitely doing it here in New York now. We're doing it in many parts of the country, but some places we aren't. So this was just 5 or 6 days ago in Florida, around the famous spring break area where college students flock from all over. And it's a little alarming because that is one big petri dish. So you could imagine, what if just one person in that group last week was holding on to the coronavirus with no symptoms, and they're just spreading it to everyone? Then all those people, spring break's over, some of them go home because all these colleges are closed anyway, and they give it to a different age group. They give it to their parents, they give it to their neighbors, they give it to their little brother waiting at home to see them. And you could just imagine that it brings this back to this, right? Right there. Brings it right back to this. When it could be this. So that's the spring break one. Yesterday I touched on loss of sense of smell and taste because I found that very interesting. It's a new COVID-19 symptom that has now been identified, and many people, it's their only symptom. So in yesterday's video, I talked about it. I had one comment from someone that wished I drilled a little deeper, so I am going to drill a little deeper today, and let's see if that helps. Okay, these are some world stats today. 415,000 total cases worldwide, 18,559 deaths. Now, just yesterday, 373,000 total cases and 16,000 deaths. I did the math. That means we had a 41,465 person jump in infected cases, and we had a 2,240 increase in the last 24 hours in worldwide deaths. I live in practice here in New York City, and it's kind of scary because we're beginning to be the most talked about area for infections. I did go into work today. Now, I know a lot of you know that I'm a chiropractor, so why was a chiropractor going to work today? In the last few days, I've had several of my patients. 95% of my practice is canceled. As a matter of fact, none of my staff showed up. It was just me. But a few people did call me, patients of mine, and said that they're in a lot of pain. They wanted to go to the hospital to seek medical attention for unrelenting sciatic pain or radicular pain down the arm, where their hands are on fire with numbness or shooting pain down the arm from herniated discs. And I have a way to lessen that. I'm not going to cure it, but they wanted to know. They contacted the hospitals. Hospitals don't really want to see them right now because their hands are full and becoming more full. So I called up my state board. I made a lot of phone calls, did some research, and I found out that I did get permission to work on a few people. So if you're wondering why, I asked and I got permission. And I guess they felt that whatever I could do to help them a little bit symptomatically would at least keep them out of the emergency room. And actually it did. So they all went home happier than they arrived, and we'll see what happens. This is a chart that I put up every video that I like. So let's start over here. So this is today in the United States. We are the number 3 country with the most cases. So as you can see, China has the most cases, then Italy, then today 51,000 total cases here in the United States. But if you look just 24 hours ago, it was 43,000 cases. Now slide over to the red column. The red column is new deaths. 114 new deaths happened here in the United States in the last 24 hours. And we jumped 8,000 in cases. But one of the stats that I like to look at are total cases per 1 million. So let's look at yesterday first. There we go, 132 people per 1 million total population. So that means for every million people here in the United States, 132 would be infected. While today, that was yesterday, we jumped up to 156 people per million. So look, 132 to 156. Italy, 1,057, they jumped up. Look at how China stays at 56. So I think they were even a little higher 2 days ago. I don't remember. It might have been 58. So that's them flattening the curve. And Italy and the United States are not flattening the curve. We're still getting increases. So let's go to the next page. This is a photograph yesterday of one of the busiest streets in Manhattan, about 1 mile from where I practice. And this is the famous 42nd Street. And empty. Totally empty. So let's jump back into the loss of sense of smell that I talked about yesterday. Loss of sense of smell or taste may be a clue to the coronavirus infection. Doctors are recommending testing and isolating people that report that they have loss of sense of taste or smell, even if they don't have a fever, shortness of breath, or a cough, or any other viral type of symptoms. This is being taken seriously. And the reason I wanted to do this video and kind of dig into it a little deeper was because I'm getting questions about this, but I want my loved ones to know that they got to look out for this. I have a patient, an old friend named Jenny, and her teenage daughter. Now they're already quarantined or self-quarantined. They went to their kind of weekend getaway home. They're going to spend a week or two there. So she went with her 3 children. And one of them reported that she's not in the mood to eat because, here, let me just move this out of the way. She's not in the mood to eat because she can't taste it anyway. So the mother, who's been doing research, Jenny, came up with a piece of garlic. She had the daughter close her eyes, take a sniff. She didn't smell anything. Really starts to get you suspicious. So they're seeking testing now and waiting to see what happens next. But that's an example of a teenager with no symptoms that might be carrying the virus. And we'll see what happens. But, and she might not ever express a symptom above loss of sense of smell or taste. So let's dive a little deeper. In the UK, a lot of the information on this is coming out of the UK, and as well as the United States and Korea, other places, Germany. But this article from 2 scientists in the UK, the experts warn that the evidence that suggests that loss of smell may be a symptom of the COVID-19. So I'm not just making this up. I had someone on Instagram think I was just creating something alarming or maybe being silly in some way, but that's not true. This was from the Claire Hopkins, president of the British Rhinological Society and the British Association for Otorhinolaryngology. You try that one. I think I did well. So it's just saying that anybody who's lost their ability to smell or taste should self-isolate for 7 days. And these people might become hidden carriers and be high risk of spreading. And we want to identify this. So I know this is strange, but that's why you should share it, because people don't know about this one. Let's close this a little bit so it doesn't cut my face off, which I wouldn't want to do. So just more of the same thing from the WHO, World Health Organization. So this is not just those two people in the UK, but we've seen quite a few reports now of people in the early stages of disease who may lose their sense of smell or their sense of taste, according to the World Health Organization, the WHO. More. Anosmia, which is the loss of smell, sometimes called smell blindness. It's the inability to detect one or more types of smells. Now, guess what? 2 out of 3 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Germany have loss of sense of smell. 2 out of 3. And 30% of all confirmed cases in South Korea. So now this is really unfolding. Let me move this. Significant increases the number of patients presenting with anosmia while absent from other symptoms. And that's the thing here. It's sometimes in the beginning, it's the first warning. It's not the fever. It's not the shortness of breath. It's not the aches and pains like you're used to when you get the flu. Loss of taste. Loss of taste is actually more of a loss of flavor. So sometimes when you lose your sense of taste, it's not so much that those neurons got knocked out. It's more that your olfactory sensory neurons were affected by the virus. And that changes your ability to discern flavor. You can't really tell that nuance between a Merlot and a Cabernet. Or you can't sniff the vanilla in a coffee, or the coffee has a little touch of hazelnut, and you can't discern that while you always could. So let's move on. There's more info on this. Patients who lose their senses of smell should get those senses back. So I had a question. Actually, I've had about 5 or 6 questions since yesterday through all sorts of social media and contacting, saying, okay, so this happened to me. Will I get my sense of taste and smell back? Most likely. We don't know for sure because we don't know what COVID-19 is going to do and how damaging it is. But typically, if you're unable to smell your coffee, it's best to call your doctor and keep an eye out for the symptoms. Now, I have a friend of the family who's in her 70s, and last year she got the regular flu, just the flu that was going around last year, and it knocked out her sense of taste and smell. She still has a loss of taste, of sense of smell and taste, but it's very slight. Now, that's a woman in her 70s. So a lot depends on how young you are, how hard the virus hits you, a lot of things. But this is why it happens. Let me see this one. Oh, so here it says post-viral anosmia is the leading cause of loss of smell in adults. So that is a fact. So people that are walking through their lives without a sense of smell, typically it was a viral infection. And so this is what viruses can do. Let's go to the next slide. Let me tell you a little bit more. And this is really for the few people that wanted me to drill even deeper. And this will be the last slide on this. So this is what happens. So what happens? How does it knock out the sense of smell? And that's the lead here, is the sense of smell, because the sense of smell kind of is primary. Secondary is more of a loss of sense of taste. And follow me here. So the virus is a respiratory portal, right? Comes in and it attacks the olfactory sensory neurons themselves. These are cells that sit back in the nose, back in the nasal cavity and sinuses. And when an odor molecule binds to receptors on their surface, that olfactory sensory neuron creates a signal to the brain, and the brain identifies it, like whether it's a vanilla in your coffee or whether it's a hint of something in your Cabernet, or whether it's a young mother that can't smell the poop in their toddler's diaper, in their child's diaper. So this is the type of reports that people are saying they can't smell the nuances. What happens is the virus kills off these cells, and these cells normally don't. The portal through the nose is always, there's toxins that we smell. These cells die all the time, and then new ones come back. But the turnover is slow and steady, so that it never knocks out our sense of smell. With the virus, you can have an abundant die-off of these cells, and then you lose your sense of smell. And they're not coming back for a couple of months. So to answer your question, if it's going to come back, it may be 2, 3, 4, 6 months, and then you'll know. You're just going to have to wait. But it's not going to happen quick. So let's say you get the coronavirus, and it runs its course, and hopefully not seriously for you. And you're all better, and you're the survivor. That's awesome. You might not get your sense of smell or taste back for another 3 to 6 months, in my opinion. And you might not ever get it back, depending on your age and depending on the severity of the attack. Let's go here. So we already talked about that anosmia is the loss of sense of smell. Aguesia, that's the name for the loss of sense of taste, aguesia. Again, I'm going deeper as I promised because I went more superficial yesterday. And these are telltale signs that you might have COVID-19. Anosmia, also known as smell blindness, is the loss of the ability to detect one or more smells. This is just kind of bringing it back up. But aguesia is the loss of taste functions of the tongue, particularly the inability to detect sweetness, sourness, bitterness, saltiness, and umami. Umami is like the taste of mushrooms or savory meats. And that is one of our tastes also. It's sometimes confused with anosmia, which is loss of sense of smell, but I'm kind of showing you some of the differences. So when I was in school 22 years ago, this was the chart that we all had to learn. This was taught in medical schools and all type of health practitioner, anybody that was doing a physical exam. Look, we would call that the bitter back 9 because it had to do with cranial nerve 9, sour on the sides. Look at these little geographical areas of the tongue. So if you were with a patient and you were testing sense of taste, you might take a little lemon juice on a little Q-tip and dab the edge right here. And you're trying to see if they can come up with that. So their eyes are closed and you touch the lemon to the edge there and they go, that's sour. And then you take a little sweet, you put it on the tip of their tongue and they go, that's something sweet. And salty and bitter was in the back. Guess what? That's all wrong now. This is an article by Stephen Munger he published this in the Smithsonian magazine. Now their thought in today's scientific knowledge is that this is no longer acceptable. I'm going to throw it off the screen right now. Boom, it's gone. Because, let's go to the next slide. Sense of taste is thought to be all over the tongue, so that you can pick up sweets, you can pick up bitter, you can pick it up in more areas than just those small geographical areas on that original map that I showed you. Don't want to get too sciencey here, but the glossopharyngeal nerve in the back and the chorda tympani branch of the facial nerve in the front, these were ones that in testing, that if you damaged, for example, the chorda tympani nerve, you would think that it would take away one's ability to taste sweet because that's where that nerve innervates. But this is not true, and that's how they were able to tell us that this map of the tongue is no longer acceptable. So what do you do? And here's the answer. If you want to taste your sense of, first do smell first. What does your coffee smell like? What is your deodorant? If you use a smelly deodorant or perfume, does it smell that way to you? Can you smell your baby's diaper? Can you smell flowers? Can you smell things? If you can't, you're losing your sense of smell. Sense of taste. Taste some of the things that are familiar with you, and whether they're sour, sweet, and you might try all of them. Sour is like a sour citrusy thing like lemon or lime. Bitterness could be kale. It could be bitters that people put into drinks. It could be your coffee. Black is bitter. Don't put milk in it. It takes the bitterness out. You're sweet, you're sour, you're salty. See, or the savory tastes of umamis like mushrooms or meats, and see if you see that you're able to identify that. And I think this is something we should at least be in conversation with the people that we love. You know how to reach me. Please help me out. And I'm trying to do this 7 days a week right now. I could use some help with some subscribers and some comments to encourage me to feel like I'm part of a community and pushing forward. I can't get it all right, but I'm trying my best. And I hope for those that said that I was too superficial yesterday, that I did dive a little deeper today and give you some more information on the Aguesia and the Anosmia, and not just leave it superficial. So thank you. Be well.